as we know, there is parts of us that are not as fun to be around. You may have noticed that you have an ego. You may have noticed yourself making life miserable at times or all the time for people around you. That and making yourself miserable through the way that the thoughts and feelings that you're having about yourself, about life. So we're looking at trying to get that thing cleaned out. So like any physical, biological organism is vulnerable to toxins in the environment, disease, that kind of thing. It can get polluted. Our outer self can get polluted, and actually pretty much universally is polluted. And one of, if not the main point of life on this planet is to get that thing cleaned up. So let's take a look at how we could do it. This is Secrets of Heaven 1603. This is talking a little more about the outer and inner self and the distinction. So the inner means that we're all good on the inside, but we got to clean some stuff up. The outer self is only a kind of tool or organ, in itself devoid of life, that receives life from the inner self. Our inner self is called our spiritual self because it is in the light of heaven, a light that is spiritual. Our outer self is called our earthly self because it is in the light of the world, a light that is earthly. People whose inner level is in the light of heaven and whose outer level is in the light of the world are spiritual on both levels, since spiritual light which enlightens their earthly light and makes it their own. Spiritual light from within enlightens their earthly light and makes it its own. The reverse is true for evil people. So what we essentially have is this dynamic where there's an inner thing, which is your eternal value is not going anywhere, but on an outer level, we can be messed up. And this show is about freeing us from that messed up state. And Swedenborg goes into more detail about that dynamic. We're going to show you a video. This is a clip being read from his TC 401.
In people who are spiritual, the inner parts of their mind are actually raised up toward heaven, because heaven is their predominant focus. In people who are merely earthly, however, the inner parts of their mind are turned away from heaven toward the world, because the world is their predominant focus. The more we focus on loving the Lord and our neighbor, the more spiritual our inner self is. From that inner self we think and will, and from it we even speak and act as well. On the other hand, the more we focus on loving ourselves and the world, the more our thinking and willing come from hell, although we speak and act otherwise. The Lord has provided and arranged that the more our thinking and willing come from heaven, the more our spiritual self opens and adapts. This opening is an opening to heaven, all the way to the Lord, and this adaptation is an adaptation to things that are in heaven. On the other hand, the more our thinking and willing come from the world, not heaven, the more our inner spiritual self closes and our outer self opens and adapts. This opening is an opening to the world, and this adaptation is an adaptation to the things that are in hell. People whose inner spiritual selves have opened to heaven and the Lord are in the light of heaven. They have enlightenment from the Lord and a resulting intelligence and wisdom. They see truth from the light of truth. They sense what is good from a love for what is good.
So what we want is more of that heaven light and less of that hell toxic smoke.